So a lot of you have been asking me for some time for some kind of base building guide. So I made this video, base building tips and tricks. And in this video, we're going to be looking at some of my older bases which I built, which happen to defend very well, both in the new and old version of hard mode, as you can see on your screen over here. Now, we're going to be doing several things. First of all, we're going to be looking at how I built those bases step by step, the thought process I had. And then after that, we're going to be considering how I could tweak those bases a little bit to be more with the current meta, because those bases were built in an older meta, but they still show some really good base building principles, which is why it's important to look at them. And then we're also going to be thinking about how I could have perhaps improved those bases and some things which could have been a little better. And this is the first base over here. And some of you might be thinking, this looks like the first base, but with a lot of buildings and defenses missing. And that's correct, because the first step in the base building process is actually to create a general outline of the base that you want, with all of the major compartments and defenses laid out. So you might wonder, how do you know the size of the compartments to build and how to place the major defenses and all that? Well, the first thing you need to know in base building is the Archer Queen's range, because you don't want the Archer Queen to reach key defenses from outside certain compartments. So I made a video called Archer Queen's range and Fireball radius, and if you haven't checked that out, or you don't know how far the Queen can reach and the range of the Fireball, that's super important when base building, because you don't want to be giving away too much value. But let's just start here as a quick example, this scattershot compartment. It can't be reached by the Queen from here, 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 or over here. Now, if you watch that video and you remember, you could just count, look, if we could just steal a few walls, look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, this is a bit bigger than necessary, but from the sides, I just made it 5. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Same as the other side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And even these, the diagonal ones, is also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it still doesn't reach the scattershot. And the scattershot is unreachable by the Queen from various different sides. So now let's get back to the rest of the base. And as you can see, the first thing I did when building this base was building the town hall compartment. So I built the town hall, and then I decided to make it one tile bigger than necessary. These walls could actually be over here, but I decided to make a tile bigger from the side. So if I would place a 3x3 building, for example, I would also have room to place some traps. So it's also important while building compartments to not make them too compact. Otherwise, you won't have room to place traps, which is an important consideration. Now, the next thing is you see these expos on the sides. Expos are really important to provide some kind of lateral damage. So what this means is if like heroes are somewhere around in a compartment, the expos are dealing damage that the heroes can't easily reach to. So one thing I did, for example, is these ricochet cannon compartments. Even if you wall break into them, you can't even reach the expo, because like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, that's correct. So you can't just wall break a Queen into here and reach this expo, so the expo is going to be dealing damage for a long time. Now the expo compartment over here, I also decided to place this wall here instead of closing it off to make wall breaking a little bit more to make it not possible actually to wall break into it, making it difficult for a king, for example, to go into here, get his ability off and set a clear funnel or get a lot of value. Now also these compartments over here, this compartment here and this compartment here, I built them over here. Well, there's a reason for them, because first of all, these kind of compartments are good because if you hit a fireball on the scattershot or multi-archer tower, it won't hit both of them, so those compartments work out nicely. But also, I decided to build these kind of bulky compartments here because the core here is very heavy and stacked, and I don't want troops being or heroes being able to easily get wall broken into here and just completely destroy everything in the core. So when you have a big core like this and you don't have any kind of dead zones, so for example a dead zone would be, for example, let me take some walls, something like of this sort, you know, and then in this case we wouldn't need those compartments. So let me just quickly show you the basic concept. So you could sometimes have dead zones in bases. So this compartment could be like this. Just you see the idea over here. This is kind of a dead space because wall breakers can't go in here. Or even sometimes you could have, you know, the dead space behind the scatter shot. Just as an example, this isn't, you know, the right size and everything. So basically, since this core was really compact and kind of accessible, this is why I decided to build these bulky kind of compartments to make sure that nothing can really get into the scatter shot, which would be rather a little bit dangerous. And then I also built this rage tower over here, covering a decent amount of value. The clan castle in the core is super important to stall up troops. And then I built these defenses on the back end. Now, this back end is actually important to notice because here I kind of did create a dead space around here. So if root riders would come in from like around here, they can't easily get into the monolith or something, which we'll discuss more in a little bit. Also notice these walls here around the expo, this to make sure the queen can't reach the expo. You see, look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just like that. Now, some people say that they use a trick with a skeleton trap to figure out if the queen can reach a defense or not. So they do they put the skeleton trap here, and if it doesn't touch the expo, that means the queen cannot reach it. So see, it's just the perfect range right over here. As I said, this scatter shot is easily, as you can see, I made it 1 tile bigger than necessary. Now the reason I think it's better to be able to count like this, like just the tiles like this, is you can't use the skeleton trap trick if you're building against super archers or a compartment against throwers, for example, because those have a slightly bigger range than the archer queen, which is actually 6 tiles, and the queen's range is 5. So it would be better for you if you could just be able to count the tiles, and it would make it more helpful if we had different kinds of metas where, for example, super archer reachability is a little bit important. Now, the last step when building your base outline is to think about the entries on the base, because that's the real test to know whether you've created the compartments well or they're a little bit too easy and too exposed. So first of all, let's think about, for example, some kind of fireball. And since all of the big value is deep into the core, the fireball would have to reach somewhere towards there. So where are the possible areas? Well, it's clear that the fireball has to come from either here or here, one of those 2 areas. And why are those both rather challenging for an attacker? Well, if a fireball were to come from this side, first of all, there are 2 merged defenses here and an expo, but also the town hall and the enemy minion prince. And if you're doing a warden charge and you eventually have to end up fighting the town hall and the minion prince, that's seriously deadly, and especially in the new version of hard mode, but even in normal mode, it's a little bit scary and not great. Now, if you were to come in with a fireball from here, this would seem super easy, right? And that's exactly why I decided to place the king here and the queen here, and here the royal champion. So I think about placing those enemy heroes later on in the when creating the base outline, because it's important to place the enemy heroes in a place where they're going to be challenging to some kind of attack. So in this case, if a warden decides to throw a fireball here, he turns to this way or that way, he's going to face here an enemy king and this multi-gear tower, or he'll have like a queen, a scatter shot, and it could be very difficult and challenging. And the important thing is just challenge. Sometimes it could be possible for an attacker to perfectly execute it, but as long as you provide a reasonable challenge it means the attacker is going to have to invest some kind of resources, and it won't be the smoothest attack from them. Now how about the next attack? A fireball into Super Witch, which at that time was rather kind of common. So a fireball into Super Witch attack, what could it do? Well, how about even just a simple fireball around here and then walking the Super Witches in towards here with a funnel around here? Well, this is made challenging in several ways. First of all, you have the Clan Castle and Monolith, which would provide lots of damage and distraction on the Super Witches moving here. And then this outside area over here where the Queen might walk to funnel is challenging because there's an X-bow which provides damage the Queen can't reach, but also the multi-archer tower and ricochet cannon to provide some point damage on the Queen and make it really difficult for her to set the funnel. Now how about a Root Rider attack, which is obviously rather common. And in the time I was building this base, one of the most important things was the Sui into Root Rider attacks, as the Electro Boots were new, but people were still figuring things out. Now we'll talk more about the Electro Boots later and how we could make this base super good against the Royal Champion charges. But first of all, the Sui into Root Riders. And here you have to consider king Suis. So what this means, where can the king go into a compartment and set a good funnel? So this is one of the most important things actually that you have to think about to create a strong compartment, which is not allowing a king to easily go into it and destroy everything. So let's start around this area, see these two compartments over here, and then make it difficult to wall break into here. But actually I think here it's possible, but still the Town Hall provides a lot of damage, and even the Poison Tower, Minion Prince. A king can't go into here. A king could try to go into here, but that's why I created this dead space over here, making it difficult to funnel the king into this area, because he's just going to keep walking around. Now, this is also another reason for these kind of compartments here. It's difficult to get the king into the scatter shot, which would be dangerous because he could damage buildings here. And then also, the last viable area is this expo compartment, which is actually possible to get the king into. So you could get the king into here and set some kind of funnel. But then you have to think about the follow-up. Is there an easy follow-up? And for example, if you want to send the Root Riders in through here, well, bad news for you, because see, I created this ring of defenses here and this dead space over here, meaning even if the king did set a funnel here, the Root Riders can't just walk through the center of the base. So that's what you want to think about. Either can the king go into this compartment, and if the answer is yes, then how can you make the follow-up bad and difficult? And again, if the king funneled this and then the Root Riders went here, this also just not really good because, like, come on, you have a lot of damage against you in this area. So this is the complete base over here for us. So let's look at the quickly look at the placement of the various other buildings. So first of all, the air defenses are spread out a little bit. And also notice that these air defenses, even though they look more towards the outside, have a wizard tower in front of them just to add a little bit of a tank factor, and also tank these defenses over here from being sniped by like rocket balloons and a fireball into rocket balloon attack. But also, again, the air defenses, it's important to cover them a little bit for like a spirit walk into dragon attack or something like that, so they're not super easy to reach into. Now also notice the mortars over here used to defend the Flame Flinger. Now you always have to think about Flame Flinger value as well. I actually don't think about Flame Flinger value too much in the early stages. I kind of react to it towards the end of building the base with like placing the enemy heroes and mortars. So in this case, for example, I placed the Minion Prince to cover this kind of Flame Flinger value, making it not really possible to get. Same with the king on this side. He doesn't allow this kind of Flame Flinger value around here. The expos yet. Because if someone placed a Flame Flinger like here, I guess it would be able to get this kind of value. But now the last area left for defense is this kind of area, which is why I placed the mortars around here to stop some kind of flame flingers. And again, remember this king and minion prince we talked about earlier? They have two purposes now, as you see. First of all, this king, for example, stops flame flingers, but he also makes fireball attacks more challenging, like if a warden were to charge around here. Same with the minion prince. So see, defenses can have more than one purpose. Now, the outside defenses, which are really important nowadays, but at the time I was building this base, the Spirit Walk meta was only just starting out. So I wasn't, the whole base building community wasn't all super sure on how to defend them. But now if I were to tweak this base more towards the Spirit Walk meta, I would really consider changing these defenses around here. Because now it's kind of easy for Spirit Walk to come in and grab the scatter shot. What I would do would be, for example, take these out of here, place, say, just as an example, storages here, and then place these archer towers more towards the outside. And then this would kind of be good, because then the Spirit Walk would have to go around here. And even if it did get into the expo, there still isn't easy pathing towards the core or the scatter shot, so there would still continue to be some kind of ring of defenses. Same around this kind of area, I would provide more defenses around the outside. For example, I might place a wizard tower here. I might remove this builder's hut entirely and place like a dark elixir drill, and even actually the builder hut, for example. Just as an example, I would want to kind of complete this ring of defenses, making it difficult for a royal champion to come in and walk and get this expo, which would be a key funneling point for the rest of the attack if the root riders were to, say, come in through over this area. And again, these are the final traps over here for the base. They're not super important for this video as they were for an older kind of meta. For example, kind of defending super witches around this area. These skeleton traps stopping kind of a queen funnel. Teslas on the back end, especially against some kind of root rider attacks coming through here or something of that sort. You know, the meta was a bit different. The horde mode was also a little bit different. But anyways, let's get into the next base. Now the next base I have here is a double poison diamond kind of base. Now this is going to be the last base I look at here, so let's quickly get into it. So first of all, I decided to build this town hall over here, and of course being unreachable from all sides. And the idea in this base was to have these expos also being unreachable while dealing damage from afar around this area. Now there's also a monolith and a multi-inferno. Monoliths go well with multi-infernos because the monolith deals the single target damage, while the multi takes out all kind of swarm troops. Okay, the Wi-Fi is fine. And then after that, I have this multi-archer town ricochet cannons right over here. Now this ricochet cannon compartment might seem a little weird, but of course you can't have things unreachable from every side, and sometimes, you know, the walls get a little bit short, so you have to make some trade-offs. But overall, this ricochet cannon is well protected, because if, for example, a queen was to come from over here, she would also have to deal with a multi-archer tower, and there's also all these defenses around here, making the area quite deadly. And then this area towards the back side, there's a scatter shot expo, and then this kind of back end. And this back end area of the base is interesting in a few ways. So first of all, the way I built it over here makes it not possible to wall break into this area for like a king or something. And also difficult to like dive into this compartment or this compartment. I believe I did stuff kind of like this or something like that to make it difficult for a king to enter and get good sui value, which we discussed earlier. And same around this kind of back area, well protected compartments, and those fire spitters, which are interesting over here. The idea when I built them was like they would provide damage while the queen would be unable to reach them from like this compartment. Now, I don't know if this is the best idea. Perhaps it would have been better to make them like this, or even like this, which we will discuss in a little bit. But first of all, we put it back. Now also notice that this kind of wall creation over here. Now these walls over here were actually done to make sure that a queen can't reach the multi-archer tower from the ricochet cannon compartment, and it kind of divides the compartments up rather nicely. Now let's think about the possible entries on the space and what made it work out so nicely. So first of all, with fireballs, the space was very spread out, making it challenging to get a fireball in. Now, the things that would be more likely to get a 3-star in the space would be Root Rider attacks. So if we think about this, where's good King Sui value that he could get? For example, the king could mainly just dive into this compartment. This is probably the easiest one to dive into, but if he does, there isn't really a lot of value overall for him to get. I mean, you can get this ricochet cannon, but you can also really trap it against a king by making it difficult to funnel him in, adding a skeleton trap with enemy royal champion, everything, which makes it really difficult. Now again, these compartments are well protected, and even these against some kind of king entry. The clan castle heal also makes it that if someone enters from here, like with the hero Sui, the clan castle troops would slow them down. And then, so overall, there isn't really much space for a king entry into the base, which makes the compartments rather strong. And also, it's important not only for Root Rider attacks, but also for fireball and rocket balloon attacks. When the heroes want to enter into one side of the base, that it's not super easy for them to find the entry anywhere. Now, also notice these dead zones on the space right over here. These dead zones make it, first of all, if Root Riders were coming here, they might like split around the area, which would not be great. But also, it makes it so that the multi isn't reachable from this side, and that the scatter shot and expo aren't reachable from this side of the base. So as you can see overall, the themes we have over here, the main things that just to help you start out into base building, first of all, make sure that compartments, the king can't easily get into a compartment and just destroy everything because he's super powerful. And the second thing is beware of the archer queen's reachability and make sure she can't reach too many defenses. And once you master stopping king and queen Suis, that's basically the first most important part into base building. And then you can look at the more simpler and various things that you just need to move a few defenses to do. For example, next thing after this, you might think about Flame Flinger value. So here might have been good value, but I have an enemy king to stop it. Here might have been good value, but I have a royal champion. Here there's an archer queen. And here I could place mortars or something to stop Flame Flinger value around here. Now let's look into the completed base and see what we did with the rest of the defenses. And this is the completed base over here. As you can see, we spread out the air defenses rather nicely. Also, I put the storage and builder hut over here to make them a little bit deeper in so a king can't easily go into these compartments. Again, a bit of mortars over here just to defend flame flingers in case. A mortar over here also to stop this kind of value. And yeah, I guess storage is also nicely placed wherever near kind of important defenses. So if a queen's going to be funneling in an area, you can kind of add some storages to make it a little bit more challenging and have her go through more HP. Also near ricochet cannons, storages are really good to slow down stuff. Bomb towers also work nicely, again blocking the ricochet cannon. And yeah, one more thing I guess, builders' huts. You would prefer to have at least 2 builders' huts touching the town hall just to heal it up a little bit, which is rather important. The rest can be spread out as needed. Now, one more final thing which we want to think about is the Royal Champion charges again, which is really relevant in this meta. Royal Champion charges and Root Riders. So again, once you take the basic principles and make a generally good base that can't allow easy king or queen suis, then you can think about other things like Root Riders, Flame Flingers, like that. So now, how about the Root Riders? For example, if I wanted to prevent an RC walk, a better thing to do, for example, here it's easy for a Royal Champion to get into this area. Maybe it would have been better for me to place more defenses along this kind of area, creating some ring once again, preventing Royal Champion from getting into the scatter shot. Although I believe a more common entry would also be to get a Royal Champion to funnel in this area, and then the Root Riders coming in from towards the Town Hall, behind the Fire Spitters again, which works out nicely. So if I didn't want a Royal Champion to get into the Ricochet Cannon, I could just take this out and do something like this, which would require a little bit more invisibilities perhaps. Yeah, and I guess this kind of works like a nice idea. Also, one more thing about the Fire Spitters. Now, looking back, I believe a better position for them might have been to perhaps point this way. Now, what does this do? That prevents, nowadays, it's much more common for people to go through the Town Hall with Root Riders, because in Town Hall 16, it wasn't super common because of the Town Hall poison. But as Town Hall 17 developed, people realized, no, just go through the Town Hall with the Root Riders, get it out as quickly as possible. Which is why Fire Spitters pointing towards the Town Hall can be good, because it forces people to make the riskier path from the backside, where again these compartments are nicely built to make it a little bit difficult for troops to like path into them, heroes to funnel, and all that kind of stuff, and also providing a really solid back end right over here. So I think this should be it for this video over here. I hope you learned a lot of things about the basics of base building and also how to build bases for these days against the Royal Champion charges and Root Riders and everything. I'll try to make more base building videos, especially with with bases built more for this kind of meta if you would like to see them. So I hope this was very informative to you and you learned a lot in it. And alright, you can see the traps on this base. 1 second. Right, so these were the traps on this base. As you can see, just like we were talking about, this would have been a nice backhand and everything. But yeah, I'll make more videos to teach you guys some base building if you'd enjoy to see them. So thanks a lot and bye bye.